Hey, what's up? Justin here with 65 Drums. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so as you guys know, Roland came out with 4 brand new drum sets at NAMM. And out of those 4 drum sets, the TD27KV was the one that a lot of people already knew about because there were leaked images and stuff of it. But it ended up being probably the least cool looking drum set of the bunch. It doesn't have deep shells, it doesn't look like an acoustic drum set. But after playing all 4 drum sets one after the other, this ended up being one of those kits that kind of stuck out to me and that I really like. I definitely think it's worth the $500 price jump from the VAD306. I think this one is just significantly better in many different aspects. Now, before I jump into the details of the TD27KV drum set, just wanted to bring up a couple of quick housekeeping items about my previous video on the VAD306. In that video, I mistakenly said that the floor tom was 10 inches across, but it is in fact 12 inches across, which is awesome. And by the way, one other thing that I didn't mention about the VAD306 was that they give you an extra 10 acoustic focused kits. So yeah, I probably should have mentioned that as well. But aside from those two things, pretty much all my opinions about that drum set stand as they are. I like the kits, but this drum set for an extra $500 is the stronger of the two in my opinion. All right, so let's jump into the overall sizes of the cymbals and the shells first. For the cymbals, you get a VH10 hi-hat, which is 12 inches across. You get a 12-inch and a 13-inch set of crash cymbals, and then you get the 18-inch digital ride cymbal. So all those cymbals are great. They perform very well. But the most impressive cymbal of the bunch is the digital ride cymbal. It's 18 inches across, very sensitive, and I think it's pretty much the best electronic rubber ride in the entire industry right now. Now moving on to the drum shell sizes, you get a 14-inch snare, 3 10-inch toms, and then a 5-inch kick drum sensor, the KD10. Those 10-inch tom pads perform great. I actually own 3 of them myself because they were featured on the TD30K that I bought. They're also featured on the Roland TD50K as well. This whole drum set very much feels like a TD50K, just with a drum module that doesn't have quite as many features inside of it. And then of course, talking about the snare really quickly, I've gone on and on about that in different videos. It's crammed full of sensors. It picks up everything that you're doing incredibly well. You can do cross stick without having to switch between different zones or play on a different part of the snare. It just works incredibly well. So this whole drum set is very solid. However, I do think they should have given you a larger kick drum. The KD10 is awesome on the TD17 line, but moving up to the TD27 line, I feel like they should have put something a little bit larger. Maybe they could have made a new kick drum that was mesh and maybe it's only 8 inches across or something. Or maybe just put in the KD120 like what you get on the TD50K, or just something a little bit different. It senses everything incredibly well and it feels pretty decent to play on, but it would have benefited from more weights behind your attack. The drum set at $500 cheaper than this, the VAD306 has a larger kick drum. Even though it features the same sensor, it has more weight behind it, making it feel a little bit more impressive than this one. So during the NAMM convention, when I got a chance to play these kits and also a lot of other electronic drum sets, I of course made a beeline for the Roland booth as soon as the doors opened. And I played the 306 and the 506. I played all those flashy new VAD drum sets first. And then I went and played this drum set after all that. But the thing is, even though those other drum sets look great and they're a lot more pretty and everything, this drum set was still a joy to play on. It doesn't look as cool, but I ended up liking this a lot more than the VAD306. And it really comes down to 3 things. It comes down to the fact that you get a much larger snare. I know just going from a 12-inch snare to a 14-inch snare doesn't really seem like that big of a jump, but it really is that big of a jump when you're sitting down and playing 2 drum sets side by side. I also really liked the 18-inch ride cymbal. Going from a 13-inch CY13R on the VAD306 over to this drum set right here, it made a huge difference. It was like breathing a breath of fresh air. And of course, I know that the VAD500 line is great. It's better than both these drum sets because it's pretty and it has those really large pads and it has the TD27 drum module, so it has the best of all worlds. But just talking about the VAD306 and the TD27KV, I really like this drum set more. And by the way, touching briefly on the drum rack, I happen to like this one a lot more than the one that they give you on the TD17 line of drum sets. This one is a lot bigger, it's roomier, and I also think just like the poles that make up the drum rack itself are a little bit beefier. Okay, so moving on to the drum module, the TD27 is what's powering all these pads. You get 728 sounds, you get 3 digital trigger inputs, 2 of which are being used by the digital snare and the digital ride cymbal, and the third one you can use to charge your cell phone. Because this is a Roland drum module, they give you a lot of control over the sounds and a lot of different effects to choose between. There seems to be some sort of unwritten law that there has to be some sort of catchy buzz term for every module out there, so the TD27 features something called Pure Acoustic Ambience Technology. This is essentially a really fancy version of reverb. So you can take your drum set, maybe kit number 1, and put it inside of whatever kind of fake room you want, and it will simulate what that kind of room would sound like with the sounds that you're working with. So for example, if you want your drum set to sound bigger, you could put kit 1 into the stadium preset. You can change different things like how big the room is, the wall type. You can make it a cloth wall or glass or whatever. We saw it all the way back on like the Roland TD10 with their Cosm sound modeling. And then I saw it on my Roland TD30 with the Supernatural sound modeling. And now they're on to prismatic sound modeling with the TD17. I've seen it on that module and also this one as well. They also give you just regular reverb, compression settings, EQ settings, multi-effect systems, and an overhead mic simulator. I really like the mic simulation inside of Roland drum modules because you're essentially deciding how much of an attack and how much warmth that you want to hear in each one of your drum sounds. The sound modeling also lets you tweak the tone by tuning, muffling, and a lot of other things. So as far as the overall sound quality goes, it's going to be up to the individual person. You'll either like these sounds or not like them. Their sounds really have divided the drumming audience. The best way to gauge is, did you like the TD50? Then you'll like these sounds. But with this generation, I think that they've really figured out the cymbals. The cymbals sound very rich and very crisp. I really like the way they sound. But I'm not really a fan of the way the kick, the snare, and the toms sound. Like, you can get them into a place where they really work. They sound great for live use, they're great for practice. But I just don't think Roland is in a place where you could actually record this and put it in an album. Again, this is all personal opinion. Sound is very subjective. I like the sounds overall, but again, I'm going to use drum softwares like Superior Drummer 3 whenever I do serious recordings for like drum covers that I'm putting a lot of effort into, or if I am asked to do a drum track for some sort of song. But anyway, back to the specs of this module. The TD27 has an SD card slot. This lets you load sounds onto an SD card and then insert them into the drum module. They also let you layer sounds, so you could theoretically get 2 samples and stack them on top of each other, or have one sample that comes in when you're playing soft and one sample that comes in when you're playing loud. And of course, you can also stack internal sounds on top of each other, or one sample that you found online with one internal sound that you have inside of the module itself. One really interesting feature that this drum module has is 28 channels of audio out over USB. And now inside of your DAW, you have 28 channels. One could be a channel just for the drum head zone, one could be just an ambience channel, one could be just the effects send. So you have the ability to really, edit the sounds to your liking after the performance is already done. Moving to the back of the drum module, you have 4 outputs. You have right and left outputs, and then 2 direct outputs. And then of course on top of that you have one for your headphones. Now unfortunately this module uses cable snakes for all the analog inputs. Also on this module you have a lot of different MIDI options. You have MIDI in and out over 5-pin, you have MIDI in and out over USB, and you also have MIDI in and out over Bluetooth. So there is no way you could not connect this to some sort of device if you really wanted to. This module also has a foot switch input. Now I don't know exactly what is supported with this particular foot switch input, but at least on my TD30 module, I've used the foot switch in the past to change between kits with my feet. All you need is like a guitar foot switch pedal, just plug it in and it works right away. And I've also used it to change, a snare throw off. The TD27 module also has some practice features built in. I'm just mentioning that because I realize some people really care about that sort of thing. I made a separate video just going through all the different drum modules in the industry that have practice features built in. So check that one out if you really are interested in that sort of feature. For me personally though, it's not really a priority when I'm buying a drum set. So I didn't really test it during my time playing with this kit. And then finally, it's important to mention that you can split zones on this drum set. Meaning if you buy a bunch of drum splitters, you can really expand this module and make it support a ton of pads all at once that are single zone. Okay, so now that I've done like the detailed overview of the module and the pads, let's just talk about this drum set as a whole for 3,000 bucks. I realize that some people will think this is a very expensive drum set that's not worth buying. And I understand, $3,000, only buy this if you can afford it. But as far as $3,000 electronic drum sets go, I really, really enjoyed playing this drum set. Not everybody wants to have a really acoustic looking electronic kit. This is for people that want portability, but also feel like they're playing a drum set that's decently sized. The snare and the ride cymbal make a huge difference on this drum set. It feels a lot bigger than it looks from a distance. I think as a complete package, it really does the job and it's a lot of fun to play on. And I know for a fact that it's really fun to play on because it was hard to even get a chance to play and record myself, testing this drum set. There were just people playing on this for a very, very long time, refusing to jump off these kits. And I understand why. It's a really, really cool drum set. The only weakness this entire drum set has is probably the kick drum. It's not that it's a bad kick drum, it's just that I wish it was a little bit bigger. But as an overall package, I really, really enjoyed playing on this drum set, and I think it's worth looking into if you're willing to spend this much money on an electronic drum set. Hey, have an amazing day. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. And also big shout out to the people on Patreon who helped make these videos possible. See you all in a few.